Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan O'Rourke, and I had the pleasure a few weeks ago in August to attend CanFitPro in Toronto. I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of attending this really fantastic event. I've been 4 times now and always see people from all over the world, colleagues, of course, from Canada, North America, Europe, Asia. It's quite an event, and Steve Groves, the Chief Intelligence Officer, I should say Chief Technology Officer, he certainly is intelligent, Steve. I know he's listening. He hosted a panel that they're trying to continue each year on technology and was kind enough to invite myself to attend, along with Len, who is the CEO of WellnessLiving, who sponsored the event, Paul Bowman with Wexer, Mike Leveque with MYZONE, and John Ford with eGym. This panel talked about technology trends with a great audience. This is a rather long podcast. Our podcasts typically run about a half an hour. This one is going to extend to almost an hour and a half. There's a lot of Q&A in it, so I just want to give you that warning in advance. We've done the best we can with the sound, but wanted to give you the sense of what went on in Toronto during this panel. The panel is comprised, of a lot of friends. Everyone there, I didn't know Len from WellnessLiving as well, although now I understand a lot more about their platform, a rather successful company. Of course, Paul with Wexer, and I've been following and involved and a supporter of what Wexer does, along with some of their competitors in the space. Mike Leveque, of course, a longtime colleague and friend, and one of the leading minds behind the MYZONE revolution. And John Ford, I've known John for many years in his roles at NetPulse and now with eGym. These are all very qualified people who have deep insights, and I want to give my sincere thanks to Steve Groves from GoodLife and CanFit for all he did in putting this event together. I hope you enjoy it and look forward to your comments and thoughts afterwards. So without further ado, let's get the party started.
Yeah, you didn't ask for my permission, right?
Okay,
I'll get it. I'll send it to you later.
Yeah, so it's 2:17, 2:18, and we've got a hard stop at 4 o'clock. So we're going to get going here. First of all, if you haven't been in any sessions yet today, let me be the first to welcome you to CanFitPro World Fitness Expo 2018. I'm sure many of you have probably already been in a lot of sessions. Some of you are obviously in workout clothes, so you probably already got your sweat on, which is fantastic. And also welcome to the inaugural and what we're hoping will be annual fitness technology panel. As I said, inaugural, so this is the first time that we've did something like this. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Groves. I'm the VP of Information Technology for GoodLife Fitness. So we're responsible for the technology in both GoodLife Fitness and as well the Fit for Less brand. And then I help out with some of the other properties that we have as well. And in that role, I have the distinct pleasure of being exposed to some of the brightest minds and the greatest thinkers from a technology standpoint around the world. And so when I was thinking about the opportunity to do this panel, I thought, I'm going to reach out and see if those people would be willing to come up to Toronto and talk to us a little bit. Unfortunately, none of those people were available. They all had prior commitments, and so
Daniel's here.
Yeah. No, just joking aside, what we have here, and I'll introduce each of them in a few minutes, is a fantastic panel of people who really do have insight into what is going on around the world in the fitness space from a technology standpoint. So we're really very blessed that they've each been able to make the time out of their very busy schedules to come in and join us. A little bit about the origin of this idea. So I've been in the industry now since 2003. And the very first time I went to the IRSA conference down in San Diego, I got out onto the trade show floor, and being the IT guy, my job was to kind of walk around and find out what was going on in this new industry that I had found myself wandering into. And huge trade show floor. It probably really hasn't changed much in size from what it's like now, but I was through that whole trade show in less than 45 minutes because there was really nothing going on from a technology standpoint in the industry at that time. I went and spoke one-on-one with everybody who looked like they had something going on from a fitness or technology standpoint. And as I said, I was off trying to find a beach to go for a run on within less than an hour. Fast forward to today. When I go to the IRSA conference now, I'm literally asking them to keep the trade show floor open later after hours and have a few vendors who can stick around and spend a little bit of time talking to me, because every single vendor right now is playing in some way, shape, or form in the fitness space. So, and if any of you have listened to the podcast that Bryan is so gracious to sponsor and be a big part of, one of the things I talked about when I was being interviewed on that podcast was the fact that a big part of my day is spent trying to figure out what do we do about the fact that there are over 2,700 fitness, well now there's over 3,000 fitness technology startups, many of them in Silicon Valley, that are out basically trying to disrupt our industry, but just trying to disrupt fitness and wellness in general, within the general population. And now with well over 3,000 companies on that list, if any of you are not familiar with the Angel List, it's a website that tracks startups of any kind. They have different categories. So as I say, there's over 3,000 companies in the fitness technology category, and they're now valued, the average valuation is over $4 million. So we're seeing some serious money being thrown at this, and anybody who happened to go to the luncheon that the folks from Apple just hosted next door at the Delta, you can see what they're doing in terms of fitness technology. So Jay Blahnik, one of the little things that he told us as an anecdote is there is a specific piece of equipment that most hospitals would have one or two of at the most. And I'm trying to remember which one. What was the, do you remember? I want to say a crash cart, but it wasn't a crash. Sorry?
Metabolic cart.
Metabolic cart. Thank you very much. So most hospitals have a couple of those. In the technology, fitness technology lab that Apple has, they now have 54. And they are right now the leading group of analysts, I guess you would call them, in terms of what's happening with fitness technology and where technology is affecting overall wellness. So that was something that popped up in my head as I was going through this. So the distinguished panel. So first off, we've got Paul Bowman, who is the CEO of Wexer. Now you have to bear with me because I'm going to read the bios as they were sent to me, which might come across a little bit stiff. We'll see how we do here. Paul Bowman is a passionate fitness industry professional.
Who's reading it out?
Who serves as CEO for Wexer, the global leader in the world of virtual fitness. Oh, wait till I get to the other ones. The other thing I should comment is these gentlemen all know each other extremely well. So if there's a little bit of back and forth banter that goes on,
Except me.
please, you'll accept Len. Len's new to the group, but we'll get him up to speed very quickly. So Paul, passion is never more evident than when he's discussing Wexer's company mission, which is to help health club operators stay relevant in an increasingly digital world by embracing technology rather than seeing it as a competitive threat. Very, very important thing for us as an industry. Paul spearheads this mission based on a clear understanding of health club operations, having previously worked for both Virgin Active and Gymbox, as well as in partnerships with many other operators during his time at the children's activity specialist Fit for Sport. In his former life as an elite athlete, did you write that? Did you write elite athlete?
It's changed a lot.
Not athlete, but elite
Paul
athlete.
was a member of the New Zealand national volleyball team, winning several regional and international titles. He remains dedicated to fitness and sport and contributes actively as both a writer and a speaker. So, Mr. Paul Bowman.
Hi. I'm embarrassed now. I'm blushing.
A little bit shorter.
Sunburn like that.
Steve read that just like Paul's mother wrote it. Your mother would be very, very proud when you read it.
My friend here, Mike, is the Chief Operating Officer for MYZONE. Over 30 years in the global health and fitness industry, Mike Leveque is the COO for MYZONE, the leading physical activity-based engagement platform for the fitness industry. After working at a 17-acre multi-sport health club in Southern California for 5 years, Mike spent 18 years with Star Trek, a company many of you would obviously know from the equipment space, where he held various positions in sales, finance, and as EMEA Managing Director. In 2010, Mike was promoted to President and COO of Star Trek, where he led the transaction to a new owner and established the new corporate entity of Core Industries. Mike left in 2011 to start MYZONE, and today MYZONE has over 6,000 registered licenses in 64 countries. I don't know if that's up to date or not. Is that still? Okay, excellent. Mike Leveque. Yeah, I got to take a drink of water before Bryan.
I can pinch hit.
Yeah. Bryan is the founder and CEO of Vedere Ventures and Integerus. He is the Chief Strategy Officer and Principal for Fitness Marketing Systems, CSO and partner in the Flywheel Group, and president of the Fitness Industry Technology Council. Bryan serves on a number of boards, including the board of the International Health and Racket Sports Clubs Association, or IRSA, as we would often refer to it as. Bryan formerly served as the chairman of the Medical Fitness Association's Education Committee and was a member of the American Council on Exercises Industry Advisory Panel. Also an owner and CSO of a chain of Houston-based Gold's Gyms Health Clubs. For those club operators, you'll obviously appreciate some of his insight there. Oh boy, this is
Please don't.
good stuff. He has his BS in finance from the University of New Orleans, his MBA from Southeastern Louisiana University, and has completed graduate studies towards a PhD in financial economics.
You're smart.
Yeah, he's really smart and he's very good at what he does. And joking aside, he is considered to be one of the leading, if not the leading futurist in our industry as it pertains to technology. So really honored that Bryan was able to join us. John Ford, CEO of eGym North America. John began working in the fitness technology area at age 25 with the founding of a company called Virtual Active.
I wish I founded that.
Yeah. You wouldn't be here.
I'm sure I would find out.
After spending years having a blast running around the world with high-tech video gear, John sold Virtual Active to NetPulse, a company, again, many of you are probably familiar with, joining them on their mission to bring video entertainment technology to connected treadmills everywhere. As the product leader at NetPulse, John then led the pivot of the company to its current form as the industry-leading supplier of health club mobile apps. Eventually taking over as the CEO of NetPulse, John grew the company to profitability, built a strong partnership with the industry technology leaders eGym, and then after falling in love with eGyms and their products, John led the NetPulse through its acquisition by eGym, joining eGym just in the last, 6 months ago that this happened?
Yeah, April.
Joining eGym as the CEO of North America, John is now excited to be responsible for delivering on eGym's promise of using technology to make the gym work for everyone in North American markets. How many people are familiar with eGym just yet? Relatively new in North America. Yeah, phenomenally successful over in Europe already. So again, great to have John on board with us. And the newest member of our group is Len Fridman. Len is the co-founder and CEO of a company called WellnessLiving, right in our own backyard here. They're based up in Richmond Hill, Ontario. A business management software for the health and fitness industry. On top of taking an active leadership role within the company as the head of product development and marketing, Len channels his passion for the industry, standing at the front lines with the product by personally visiting WellnessLiving customers. Prior to WellnessLiving, Len was a senior manager at a medical imaging software company. After 9 years, he chose to follow his passion for fitness and started a boot camp in his neighborhood. The boot camp quickly became successful, grew to multiple locations across Canada and the United States, and later evolved into a multi-studio discovery pass called the Meta Body Yoga and Fitness Pass, which is still very popular in the United States today. So, Len, welcome. Thank you very much. And Len's company is also sponsoring the session here today. So we're very grateful that he's helping offset some of the costs of running the event. So thanks very much, Len, for doing that for us. So the format of what we're going to be doing here today is I've asked each of the panelists to take 5-10 minutes at the most to give us a perspective on what they're seeing happening right now in the fitness industry as it pertains to technology. We're going to go through and have them each come and talk, as I say, 5, 8, 10 minutes at the most. We'll roll through those relatively quickly, and then we'll open it up. I've got a number of questions that I'm looking forward to asking these guys, but I know that many of you will have some questions as well. So, Mike, I may put you on the spot and have you go first if that's all right with you.
Yep.
Okay.
Happy to.
Take your chip.
Okay, very good. This is not a MYZONE advertisement, although I'm happy to talk about it if any of you have any questions.
Should be holding the product.
Oh, there we
Yeah, there you
go.
go.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about just real quick is sort of the science behind wearable technology and the engagement factors. Two engagement factors I believe are gamification and social accountability. Many of you guys are aware of, up on the screen you'll see business intelligence talks about the global wearable revenue and where it's projected to go. Upward right is always good. But if you laid over someone revenue of a company like Fitbit, you would see a different story. The different story that Fitbit would have would be 21 million devices in 2016 and 15 million devices in 2017, and projected to be even fewer in 2018. So what was the difference between a Fitbit and, Steve and I were just at the Apple presentation, and they talk about growing at compounded 60% annual growth rate year over year, whereas Fitbit declined by 30% in 2017, and then they'll decline by another 15% this year. In my opinion, the difference is you've got to deliver on your value proposition. People think they were getting healthy when they bought the Fitbit device. They delivered on gamification and social accountability, but the World Health Organization guidelines for physical activity is 150 minutes of moderate level intensity exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous level intensity exercise per week, and you just couldn't measure that with steps. Nowhere in the World Health Organization guidelines does it say 15,000 steps or 10,000 steps. And that's ambient or incidental exercise. Great gateway, don't get me wrong. Great gateway to what we do in the health clubs today and what we do in our industry, but that's why you see the different revenue trajectories. Most devices are based on the habit routine. Why am I putting up toothpaste? This was a famous study that was done when they put the citric acid into toothpaste because people were only brushing their teeth once a day, and the toothpaste manufacturers said, hey, we need to create the habit for brushing your teeth, so they'll do it 2 and 3 times a day. So they put the tingling sensation in the toothpaste, you brush your teeth, you got the reward, and then you are more likely to do it again. And that's the accountability, the post-workout messaging, the social networking. That's what we do today in wearable technology. And so if we want to create the habit of fitness, and that's what we do in wearables. We talked about this. Wearables in our industry have to be based on World Health Organization guidelines. We think that we are a big industry, but when you look at outside the world, they want to talk about Center for Disease Control and World Health Organization. They don't want to talk about what we think in our industry is best for our clients. They want to have governmental agencies. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about exercise adherence and effects of social accountability. It's amazing. We have hundreds of thousands of users per month on our platform, and if a user has 4 connections on our system, they will work out 40% more. It's unbelievable, just 4 connections on our system. If they receive more than 4 likes in a month, they will work out 84% more. If they give likes, it's a more interactive social connection. So they receive likes and they give likes 100% more. And a more rich social connection is comments. So you get likes and you also get comments, work out 132% more. So what I'm talking about here is social interaction and the power of social networking, and it has on forming habits of fitness. And if they give comments, they'll work out 140% more. It's unbelievable. Effective gamification. One of our clubs, big club in New Jersey, they had high-risk members. They're members that only come into the club 4 times. They said, if we give them a wearable technology, what will be their behavior change? They went from 4 times a month coming into the club to 11 times coming into the club. If you're engaged in a challenge, our studies show you'll work out 33% more. But the slide I like the most is what happens when you forget your wearable technology, in this case, our MYZONE heart rate belt. And 30% of the people say, hey, I'm okay with it, no problem. 50% say, oh, I'll still work out, but I'm going to have lower motivation. Because I'll tell you what, this generation likes to get credit. Everything that they do, they want to get credit. And 20% said, I'm just not going to work out. I'm going to go home and get my belt and come back. Now for me, I'm in the 20%. I will have to admit, how many people have gone home and got their belts? Yep. And so in terms of accountability, credit, and social networking, I believe those are the keys. But the underlying value proposition has got to be deliver on your value proposition, and that's to engage the member and make sure that they're becoming more fit. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Paul, do you want to come up?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going in no particular order.
After I went first.
Well,
you see that?
no.
It's always hard to
Best
find.
first. Yeah.
Do I just swap? Yeah, cool. Okay, so just a very quick intro about Wexer, just to put in context what I'm about to say. We work with health clubs around the world providing the digital platforms and the fitness content that goes on them to make sure that health clubs are able to provide even more of the fitness experiences that their members want. What I'm talking about here is apps, virtual fitness, live streaming, and so on. It's the sort of technology consumers are increasingly looking for, and the data proves this with growing demand. We serve the majority of the top 25 chains worldwide, and we've seen 153% year-on-year growth in our technology. And this half year alone, we've had over 6 million people use or work out with our technology. So what are we seeing? So essentially, we're seeing the game just changed. Digital fitness is making fitness easier to consume, whether it's streaming videos or social media influencers, fitness apps or online weight loss programs. Activity is now more than just a click of a button away. And consumers are responding. The internet now is essentially the first port of call for all of those looking for fitness programming. The tech-based approach is not only convenient to the end user, but it also meets consumers' growing expectations or personalizing their products and services. Using data about the individual digital fitness programs are now able to reflect our goals, our preferences, our interests, and our progress to date, and quickly and in real time, and instantly making those changes. And we see it as the personalization will only get better and more compelling as AI continues to develop. So let's compare that to our industry. So cool, our industry's growing, which is a good thing, but nowhere near at the rate of digital fitness users. So currently there's 78 million. That's reported to be at the end of the year at 114 million. And digital fitness subscribers is essentially defined as someone that's paying $5 per member per month for a subscription. So it's essentially growing right next to our industry and really highlights a huge opportunity for us. So then, looking at, we did a huge research case study with Fitness First to understand, one, the biggest drivers of cancellations, and also if there's any correlation to the digital fitness increases. And there was. So what we found was, of course, 50% of gym users churn every 12 months, which is a common stat. But the biggest reason was because of the support not being there. And then we looked at that even further and said, okay, what are the major reasons to cancelling memberships? And it was feedback on fitness performance. It was getting workouts designed for them and didn't get flexible membership options that worked for them. Essentially, that's where digital fitness has grown from, especially in terms of taking members away from the health club, because they're doing those significantly better than our industry right now. So then we want to look at that a little bit more and understand exactly how people are engaging both with digital fitness and current members. And what we realized is we can really put everyone on a spectrum on confidence. The big thing we realized is the more confident users were, those were our gym members. What we weren't doing well from an industry point of view, and digital is answering the question significantly better, is on the far left where you have the confidence seekers and learners. That's where they want constant feedback. They don't want intimidation. They want things to be progressed for them. So that's where the huge opportunity lies in terms of how we can blend our physical clubs and our digital presence as well. So in a nutshell, what we believe is that not everyone will go to the gym, but they will engage with digital fitness as long as it's easier for them to do so. And this is a fact that operators must recognise and act on if they want to future-proof their business and grow. So digital transformation, so I've heard it a lot in this conference, but essentially what is it? What we're suggesting is that it's all about creating a digital membership, and this is not abandoning bricks and mortar. It's about club operators taking ownership of the digital space as well as the physical one by creating digital memberships for those who want to access the expertise and programming in this way. Importantly, this is about choice and convenience. It's about being relevant to every member and every potential end user by harnessing the delivery channels that they choose to use. These channels might be physical or they might be technological or a combination of the two, but clubs need to access every single option to make the appropriate choices for their target market. All of this only better serves existing members, giving them constant access to the expertise of their club, all available at their fingertips 24/7, but it also makes club memberships more appealing to the broader audience. So essentially what we're saying is fitness today should be on demand inside and outside the gym, and this is what a digitally transformed club is able to deliver. So just to visualize that, what we're saying is that rather than seeing technology as a threat or an alternative of health club, we need to advocate blending it into the overall experience of the club. Tech becomes a tool that enables clubs to remain relevant today as well as future-proofing for tomorrow, and quite simply ensures that health clubs remain at the very heart of fitness experiences, even in a more digital world.
Thank you. We'll hear that theme come up, I think, quite a bit. Just the notion that at one point, I reflect back again on, when I was at URSA 14 years ago, technology was irrelevant, really, in a lot of ways. And then it seems like it's very quickly now being perceived as a threat. And what I actually, for a couple of years, left the fitness industry and went and worked for a newspaper chain. And it was the exact same thing there. Technology was absolutely irrelevant until it was suddenly a massive threat to the future of the newspaper industry. And my job was to help them figure out what happens when we're not printing papers in the basement of the buildings anymore. So we're starting to see something very similar happening, obviously, in our industry. Mr. O'Rourke.
Here we go.
All right.
You're working on your PhD. Am I going to have to call you Dr. O'Rourke soon? Is
that You can call me Joe. So it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm going to try to figure out if I can use this thing right. It's very neat. Use this. Very cool. So we're dealing with a really transformative period. What does that mean for the industry space? We think it means a 300% improvement and reach in the digital and physical space by the year 2027 globally. And it's a tsunami of change. What technology really is about, though, is it's not about the tech itself. I mean, some of these gentlemen are sharing things that are demonstrated examples of how technology is doing things now for clubs and the fitness industry, but it's really not about that. It's really about our mindsets and starting to rethink things that we've taken for granted, that we were limited by just the tools to be able to do stuff we couldn't do before at scale. And this is really important because our mindsets need to change. If you're a professional as a trainer, if you're a club owner, if you're a CEO, no matter who you are, you have to throw out your notion about what's important and what isn't anymore, because it's all about learning and relearning. And these are the kind of things that you have to start examining because of what technology can unleash for all of us, a shift in our mindsets. The other thing I think we need to think of when we're looking at technology is the possibilities. Because for us, it's not about bricks and mortar anymore. It's about a combination of different things combined to create a whole new world. Some call it wellness, some call it betterment. I like that term. But it's more of a combination. So when you see these gentlemen discuss digital, there are pure digital models that are going to fill the digital betterment world. They're not going to involve any bricks and mortar. Then there are going to be new combinations of things. The bottom line being that the greatest products and services in our industry space have not been invented yet. And that's pretty profound, and that's why mindset is so important. And when you look at Gymshark, that is actually an apparel company that's in the fitness industry. It is an indirect competitor to clubs, okay? And it's doing it in a new way. Replica is an AI text device that provides you support. So another pure digital interactive platform that can actually act like a human in coaching and helping people think about changing behavior. So all these new combinations are going to represent the future. Today, we need to realize that the key drivers for the bricks and mortar space are really these four things. One is business model sustainability. So that doesn't mean you open a place or a place of business and it survives a year or two, because fully 50% of boutiques today are not profitable. So you have to be able to look through sustainability. And things like that for us when it comes to tech is going to be reducing cost substantially, and I'm going to show you why, as well as increasing engagement and revenue in new ways. Services, like my friend Mike talked about, the idea of digital and using it to create new service delivery mechanisms that weren't possible for. Social reinforcement of behavior, other programs, be they digital programs through Wexer. The other thing is digital, pure digital, the digital tools that enable you to deliver these things in multiple ways, omnipresence that we'll touch on. And finally, aesthetic user design. Very important, both digitally and in the four walls. Having a place with equipment in it, even a studio with gym, workout classes, etc., is not enough. We have to create great user experience. And the keys for operators today, and technology relates to all these, are these 5 drivers. The first being hyper-personalization, and you can see with some of the stuff these gentlemen were talking about where that shows up. I know that our friend John will touch on that with eGym as well. Frictionless commerce. Instead of taking 5-10 steps to book a personal training class, you need that to be in 1 or 2. You need to have tools that integrate it, make it very easy for people to transact business. Facilitated commerce, so things like Google Reserve with MindBody that make it very quick. You're on another platform, you don't have to go to another website or app to be able to make a purchase. Facilitated commerce. Next is strategic location of your services. Video, mobile first. You need to be where the eyeballs are and where the people's world is, not where you want to be. And finally, omni-channel. You have to deliver experience to the user, both in club and out club, 24/7. And doing this is a challenge for a lot of reasons that I'll touch on. But here are the facts, okay? A lot of what we think, when I go to the Four Seasons in Manhattan to stay, I don't talk to the front desk staff, even though they're very wonderful people, very, very helpful if I did need them. I check in with my app, I go to my room, order my dinner, while I get in the shower, I don't talk to anyone, and that's a very expensive hotel. So the new era of self-service, but even more important is where we can drop costs out of things that are really low value in their nature and invest more money in humans in different ways that make them more effective, because human beings are the greatest apps in the world. But when we think about the notion of business model sustainability, these are going to be the 4 execution engines that are going to drive our industry in the next decade. One is collection of data, okay? Another is enterprise platforms, automation of tasks, so delivering hyper-personalization and doing that at scale by using an enterprise platform. And finally, human capital, investing in paying professionals a lot more money because we're ratcheting costs out of low value delivery and shifting it to where it needs to be, a la the Four Seasons Hotel that I referred to a minute ago. And this is going to be challenging for us all over the next decade. Some of us will not make it, and then there will be others that make it big, big time. And it's going to be about being able to navigate the S-curve reinvention. And that's really about your mindset and thinking about the possibilities of the new and constantly learning and relearning and testing your assumptions. Very kind of you, Steve, to mention this. This is a resource I really hope you all take time to look up, Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. We have about 80, I think, sessions, and we're about to publish a bunch more in the next month. So check this out. We talk about this stuff with leaders from all over the industry. And then really think about, I don't care what your role is in the space. Okay, I don't know, if you're an operator, if you're a trainer, if you're a professional in any way, it's very important for you to challenge your mindset and think about the new possibilities. And with this, for my friend Paul from Wexer, I leave you with this final video to think about that.
Well, I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long
Get it?
time.
Yes.
Good.
I think one of the most exciting things about virtual reality is like our kids and our grandkids are gonna laugh when we tell them that we used to have to wear goggles to have that kind of an experience, because I mean, there's been a lot of talk that, you know, we'll eventually see that just built right into contact lenses or something of that nature. So when that happens, all of the barriers around, well, I'm never going to work out with a goggle around my head. Well, this is just the beginning. You got to envision where it's going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So thank you very much, Bryan. That was fantastic. John, I'm going to get you to come up next. We'll let our new friend go last.
Of course, you make me call her Bryan.
So old, really.
This is what-
I was like, yes.
As soon as you got called up third.
They drew straws.
Can everyone hear me okay?
That's not even a mic.
Oh.
You're good.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of fitness. But to start, I'm going to do a quick 15-second recap of the prior eras of fitness for you guys. We all know this is where it started. A few guys trying to look like this guy. Then came aerobics, Bally's, other chains like this that brought the industry into the mainstream. And then finally we landed in the judgment-free zone. Right? And so the cool thing about the last 50 years for the industry is that over that time, we were able to grow the industry from essentially 0% adoption to approaching 20% now of the population that uses gyms. And the question for me is, how can we get beyond that, right? How do we get that to 50, 75%? Is that possible? And so I like to think about the really, really big, high-level 5 to 10-year problem, right? Of how we break through this barrier, is 20% barrier. And it's a big problem because this is what we're up against. Absolutely, motivation is the number one issue that we're dealing with there. We've got ourselves now to where our clubs are practically free, a lot of them, to join. You're paying hardly anything at all, and they're on every corner. So we're not going to get past 20, 25% by making the product cheaper or by making it more convenient. Just no opportunity left there, right? So one major path is going to be improving the value of the product that we deliver now, especially for beginners. I think there's opportunity there. Paul talked about, the 1 through 6 scale, what can we do for those 1s and 2s? And I do think that's a big current opportunity. I'm not going to talk a lot about that because this is a more future talk, but it is what I focus on every day. So the issue with these guys is even if you gave him a free gym membership and put the gym right in front of his front door, he's still not going to do it, right? Because his problem is really that fitness takes effort, and he's not motivated to put forth that effort. And this represents the majority of the population, right, that we're dealing with. So I have this crazy idea that there's one way to actually get 100 new members onto our rolls over the next 10 years, and that's that we pay people like this to work out. So I'm talking substantial incentives to actually get them off the couch and into the gym. Because if you don't solve that motivation problem, we're done. We're done at 20, 25%. I don't care what product we make, where we put the gyms, etc. It's a hard wall, it's a motivation wall. But people are motivated by cash, especially if it's reasonable amounts of cash. And so we're definitely going to have to do better than the $50 a month that they're throwing at you now in some US insurance programs for tracking steps or whatever it's going to be. We have to do a lot better than that to really move the needle. So 2 big questions coming out of that. One is, who the hell will pay for that, right? And then number 2, even if it did get paid for, how would we execute on that as an industry? How do we add 100 million people, 100 million of those 1s and 2s, and actually get them served in a way that provides real outcomes that are worth incentivizing? So you just drop people like this into a gym, obviously that's going to do nothing. Right? I think where we have an opportunity is from these guys. So Bezos and Buffett, and I can't remember the JP Morgan Chase guy, but these guys have a ton of money, and they are looking to change the way that healthcare works, right? And so with them are a lot of other people that are working on disrupting healthcare right now. And they've identified several levers. A big one, for example, is they want to figure out how to get all the middlemen out of the healthcare system in the US that are leeching value and not providing value. But another one that's been identified is the move from sick care to preventative care. And the good news for us in this industry is that fitness prevents practically everything bad to some degree. So we have a strong role to potentially play here in this new ecosystem that I think is going to emerge over the next 5 to 10 years. And so on top of, one of the main reasons I think this is going to be driven by people like this is because large self-insured corporations stand by far to benefit the most from this sort of change. So they not only get the medical savings benefit of a healthier population, they also get the productivity gains, less absenteeism, and all the other things that come along with fit employees. So there's a big pool of potential money to invest there. And to give you just one example, average diabetes patient costs us $15,000 a year to take care of, right? And so given the impact that being fit has on diabetes, over something like 80% of cases are resolvable or impactable with fitness. That's a massive pool of money when you think about, I'm speaking US again here, but 1/3 of the population has either diabetes or prediabetes. So that's an insane amount of money that's there to unlock if we can help solve that problem. So let's say that we get there and we get the incentives in place and we get the right structure in place, say 5, 10 years from now. What kind of system are we going to need to actually take on 100 million new people and get them fitter, right? One thing that I believe very strongly is it has to be an automated system. You know, I do think human capital is important, but I think in this particular case, people don't necessarily scale well, and this is a massive scale problem. So we're obviously not going to get all these people PTs. Totally unrealistic, and that would eat up all the value of the program. But traditionally, these 1s and 2s are requiring PT or they fail. Those are generally what happens when a 1 walks into a club, right? And so we need a system to actually support them to get the outcomes that doesn't cost several $100s a month, because that would then eat up all the money that we need to use to actually pay them to show up. First thing needs to be is prescribable. And by this I mean the system has to be able to tell the user exactly what to do, the machines themselves that the person's working out on, whether it's cardio or strength. It needs to continually assess them. So as you show up, reassess your fitness level on the cardio, how much you can push or pull on this particular exercise, so that the program can automatically be adapted over time as you improve. Because they have to be continually challenged or they'll continue to see, they'll plateau and see no benefit. It has to be fully trackable, and by that I mean full data to the end user, but also to the payer. Right? One of the reasons why I think we get really crappy incentives right now, $50 a month, etc., is the only evidence these insurers have right now that you're actually doing fitness is that you did 10,000 steps on some days, and we already talked about how important that is. Right? You know, or it shows that you checked into the gym a couple times, like maybe you went to that cafe or maybe you ran by and swiped in. So to get to real incentives, we're going to have real accountability and real data coming out of the machines. That shows the activities that people actually did, that they completed their prescribed program. And then lastly, I think it's probably most important, it has to be incredibly easy to use, this system, because we're talking about the kinds of people that have no clue what to do and are extremely intimidated. So it needs to be quick start, simple. I press a button, I sit down, and I push or pull. If it's any harder than that, it's not going to work for this 100 million people that I'm talking about. So if we can put together short, time-efficient, highly effective workouts that are extremely easy to use, fully trackable with full accountability, then I think we have a system here that can solve that problem. And so let's say we get there. What does the space end up looking like? Who's actually delivering this service 5 to 10 years from now? We've talked about consumer devices or products that work in the home. I actually don't think it's them personally. I think that the nature of the full guidance needed for this type of user and the accountability needed for this type of system doesn't lend itself well to a home fitness solution, at least not for the next 20, 30 years. I would hope that it's the people in this room, that it's gyms that are able to capture some of this value. I suspect that there are going to be new entrants to the space. I know that in the healthcare world, there's a focus now on trying to build a new front door to healthcare in the US, more of a casual engagement, street clinic type style that is going to lend itself very well to exercise prescription and preventative care. That new model is being worked on, and I think there could be businesses that form around that model that handle the exercise component of preventative in this new structure. So that's something for us all to look out for. Thanks.
Last but not least, our sponsor and newest friend on the panel, Len, coming up here.
Not too much of an advertisement.
Okay, it's all yours.
Cool. So thanks all for being here. First of all, this panel is awesome, and I feel so honored to be here and present in front of all you guys. And I gotta say, I feel a little bit like that ostrich, that flying ostrich, because I just got back from California and I did a 120-kilometer bike ride in support of diabetes. So I'm still like on cloud 9 right now. And I know you guys are probably wondering, what is Wellness Living? Like, who are these guys with the t-shirts? And I got my co-founder right there, and he's got his t-shirt on too. So I'm gonna take a little bit of time and tell you guys about who we are, because I feel that we're doing big things. How many of you are familiar with MindBody, with a raise of hands? Okay, so we were a MindBody customer back in 2010. We were actually their second largest customer. We had 60,000 clients booking classes on their platform. And this was 2010. And like many MindBody customers, we were really unhappy with their service. We were really pushed around, we felt. Our subscription fees were increased on a monthly basis. I was getting calls I got a call on a Sunday when I'm with my family, and MindBody was basically threatening to shut us down because we weren't using their merchant processing. So what we did, my partner and I, we decided, hey, we had enough of this, we're gonna build our own software. And that's exactly what we did. So we're actually a bootstrap company out in Richmond Hill, Ontario, and just the fact that we're here is just, I feel incredible. We're big in the States right now. We have 4.7 million users on our platform, which is phenomenal. We're just entering Canada now. We have a bunch of Canadian customers, but a lot of people don't know about us. A lot of people don't know that there's an alternative to MindBody out there. So if you guys have a moment later on, we're at booth 447. You want to check it out? That's my little sales pitch. So I'm super excited and super fortunate to be here, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about Google, Reserve with Google in particularly. I know that Bryan touched on that a little bit in his presentation, and he mentioned MindBody. There are other options available for people that want to go on Google and be a Reserve on Google, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to get into Isaac, and that's an artificial intelligence project that we're working with York University on. It's really cutting edge stuff. We've got some government funding that are backing us right now, and it's amazing. So let's get right into it. So how many people are familiar with Reserve with Google? Just with a show of hands. Okay, so we got a few people. So what it does is actually enables Google users, to either use Google Search, Google Maps, or the Google Reserve website in that environment to actually complete a booking, a class booking. So first off, we're going to go into Google Search. So typically people search for fitness in a certain location. Google is incredibly amazing at what they do. And what they have on the right there, what you see is Sweat Fitness Stockton, that's the Google My Business listing. Every business should have that. How many, out of all the studios here, how many have that, the Google My Business listing? Very few. This is essential, and this is free, provided by Google. So if you don't have that, you're missing out on huge stuff as far as SEO goes. Now, one of the things that's amazing with working with the people at Google, it's awesome to have them on speed dial, because I could just call them up and then have a chit chat with them. But their whole thing, this SEO, it's like this mystical thing that people are paying big dollars a month for. While Google provides all the information that you need to make your business SEO friendly, available on Google, and appear right on the first page. That is one of the primary ways of getting on there. So if you don't have that, make sure that you go to Google My Business, Google it, and set that up for yourselves, because you're losing out on a lot of potential clients if you don't have that. So I'm going to get into a couple things that you should notice on that right panel. You'll see that See Schedule, that big blue button. So that is really what facilitates the booking. As soon as you click that See Schedule, it'll pull information from your actual business. If you're using one of Google's partners, we're actually fortunate to be one of a handful of fitness management software that's supported in the Google environment. So there's a few others. Obviously, MindBody is one of them. I think there's Full Slate is another. There's us, and then there's, I don't remember the name, but a handful of businesses, software companies that will facilitate that booking. What you're looking at right here is really what you see on Google Maps. So the same thing when people are searching Google Maps, they'll see your business listed there. They can pull up the My Business listing. You'll see a book online button. And Google right now, since this is relatively a new service, especially in Canada, they're experimenting with that button. So in one case, you may see Schedule. In another, you'll see the book online there. And the final screen is actually, this is where the schedule gets pulled. So it's actually pulling all your classes, all your availability. If you're doing appointments, personal training appointments, you can actually book those through Google as well. And remember, that whole integration with Google, it's all free. It's all available to you. The other thing here is Google set up a whole Reserve with Google website. And there's a whole bunch of different categories. So, and your business would be listed there. So if it's yoga, Pilates, massage, all of these wellness businesses are being listed on Google. And Google's going to start really actively promoting this page, so people will go here and browse for services. And again, through our partnership with Google, they're able to book, in this case, a hot yoga wellness power flow with Jacob class right through that particular interface. So why is Google doing all this? So basically right now, if somebody wants to book a class, these are the steps that they would have to go through. So they, and each one of those steps, and there's quite a few of them, they'd have to go to your website, they'd have to navigate through your website, find your classes, and do all of that. Meanwhile, each time they do something, less and less people are actually performing the final booking because it's so difficult. There's so much friction involved. So what Google has done is really cut out all of those things, put it all in the Google environment, making it easy for people to book and actually attend their classes or any sort of services. So it's huge, and it all starts with that Google My Business listing. So definitely you guys get on that. As far as our software goes, we just have a switch. You switch that switch on, boom, all your classes and services get populated right in Google, which is phenomenal. And you can actually choose which services you want and how many spots are available for Google users. And unlike other software companies, there is no fee for a marketing fee. I know MindBody charges a marketing fee for this, 15%. We don't do that. So the other thing that's super, super important is reviews. People are on the web looking at reviews. Like, I can't stress that enough. Anytime you go to a restaurant, you're always checking reviews. The same thing when they're looking up fitness studios and classes, reviews are essential. So the other really cool thing, and we're actually the only ones out of the fitness business management software that is actually recognized by Google as a valid review site. So if you take, it's kind of difficult to see at the moment, but on the left there where it says Sweat Fitness Stockton, right at the bottom it says reviews from the web, and you'll see WellnessLiving there. And if I look here, we got 97 reviews for this particular business, and which is more than any of the other avenues, including their Facebook page. So it's a huge way to get on there, and that again helps with your SEO ranking. So getting those reviews up there is another plus for you. So, I sort of touched on this, but SEO is not something magical. It really isn't. It's about getting your content out there. So if you have a blog, You got to put it up there. You got to update it consistently. If you're getting customer reviews, you need something to get you customer reviews. That's new content. If you're not replying to customer reviews, that's a problem. You got to reply to it. Google loves new content. And just having that My Business listing and that integration with Reserve with Google is going to improve your SEO ranking. We've seen it time and time again. So the other thing, the main thing, one of the big things that's sort of changing the industry, I like to think, and I know that when I started in my fitness boot camp, I wasn't a business owner. I didn't know how to run a business. I knew fitness. I'm a fitness guy. I love fitness. I love training people. So when you start a fitness business, you may not know about all these KPIs. Like, what is a KPI? I had no idea. Even when I started this SaaS business, software as a service business, I didn't know that until I started talking to VCs and stuff, and they're asking me, hey, what's your CAC? What's your LTV? What's your this? And I'm, what? We just build great software and we sell it to these businesses. That's all we know. So what we're doing is actually we're working with the AI team over at York University, and that's where we got some funding from the government, and they're actually helping us create an intelligent dashboard listing all these different performance indicators. But further, what we're going to do is actually provide you guys with recommendations. So recommendations as far as what you should do to improve your numbers. And what we're really going to start with first is the churn rate. Churn is a huge problem for fitness businesses. It's huge. And some of the presenters, I think it was Paul that was talking about churn, like 50%. And what we're actually going to do with Isaac and machine learning is actually we're going to predict which of your clients are going to churn. And so by predicting, using that predicting and showing you the clients that potentially could churn within the next month or so, you can take corrective action. And corrective action meaning you can call them, you could talk to them, you can ask them how things are going. There's a whole range of things that you could do to in a proactive approach to reduce that churn, give them that little bit of special attention that they need. So that's the first thing that we're going to be using Isaac for, is to provide that churn prediction and indicate to clients that potentially could churn.
Do you have some more of the stuff around AI? Because I'm sure we're going to end up getting a bunch of questions around that as well.
AI
that we can get into when
any kind of questions like that.
Okay,
for sure.
Yeah.
But mainly what it's going to do is really provide all of these sorts of key metrics, but at the same time provide recommendations of how you can improve it. So it may be using text messages. It may be adopting a client app and providing those recommendations. It may be about costing. How should you price your memberships? How should you price using variable pricing for some of your classes? Okay. So yeah.
That's great.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're going to have 45 minutes here. I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to ask all of your questions of the panel. Does anybody have any questions to start off? Otherwise, I've got a couple I can get us going on. Not just. So I was reading I think it was 2 weeks ago, it was announced that Orange Theory, that just started 8 years ago. Anybody here from Orange Theory? I was going to say something nice. I wasn't going to be anything mean. So Orange Theory, which started only 8 years ago, just announced that they're opening up their 1,000th club, and they've got 500 more locations in the pipeline that they're going to be breaking ground in the next little while. An organization that some would argue is just based on fantastic programming, some would argue is based on a technology play. So, I mean, Mike, this is probably something that's right up your alley, so I'll have you go first. But what is the reason for their success? What do you attribute? Is it attributable to the technology, the wearable technology that they've pioneered, or is there more to it than that?
Well, I think it's two things. I think the wearable is gamifying the programming. And they've done an excellent job of gamifying the programming relative to the wearable technology. If you go into an Orange Theory, your goal is to earn what's called splat points. Splat points is the way that they communicate post-exercise oxygen consumption, or EPOC, and to where the benefit that you receive after the workout. Most people, when they walk in the door, have never heard of Epoch, but they understand if they earn, I think it's 17 flat points in a session, which is their feedback from the wearable technology, then they will have succeeded in that session. I think one of the things that our clubs, some of our clubs often do, is they think that they can buy our system and sell the belts, and that's the secret to success. But putting technology on bad programming or putting technology on bad processes is just really expensive bad programming and bad processes. And so I think what Orange Theory has done is use the gamification or use the wearable to support the gamification, but also to really stay consistent with their value proposition and their message.
That's okay, fantastic. Brian, I mean, any thoughts on
I think what Mike said was very profound, because I think when you look at guru brands, which I've said that SoulCycle is one of the guru brands in the world for the last number of years, what you'll see is in technology application, like Mike's pointing out, where the delivery system is very, very defined, it gets a lot, not easier, but clearer on how you actually achieve the ability to integrate that tech in a way that really makes sense for the user experience. So I think Orange Theory is similar in that regard. What they do is pretty much a very niche approach from an operationalization standpoint. So their ability to do what he's describing, I think, is easier than other business models.
Gentlemen, I didn't really kind of pre-frame things, but obviously I'm not just going to call on you individually. You jump in whenever you feel you got something to add to the conversation. We've experimented in GoodLife a little bit with the whole notion of DNA testing. I mean, there's this school of thought that there is an opportunity to go out and do some DNA analysis. DNA Fit is one of them. I'm trying to remember the name of another one. Fitness Genes, I think, is the name of it. And what they're claiming is that they've cracked the genetic code that through just a, maybe blood sample, but more likely just a swab of your mouth, they're able to determine the optimal type of exercise and nutrition. Is that something that is actually going to be happening, or is this just kind of modern fitness snake oil?
I would say that if it actually works, they should have done a better job of putting data out that shows that it works, because I've heard about this for quite a while, and to me it seems kind of BS-y.
Yeah.
And if it works, great, but I'm not a believer yet. I haven't seen anything, so.
Yeah, my argument would be, that's really a lot of that scientific stuff is coming from athletic backgrounds, and people that are looking at the highest performance levels for our members that are coming to the club. How intimidating is that to get swabbed to the mouth, all the rest of it? Yes, the data that comes out of it is usable, but as I said, there is a lot of BS behind it as well. So.
I think it's coming, but it's not here. You look at sort of the biomedical engineering and biotech firms. And I've done the cheek swab, and I sent it to LSU, and they gave me, my exercise prescription is 60% high intensity, 40% steady state, and my macronutrient profile is 45% protein, which is like total nutrition jail. But they gave me all of my macronutrient profiles. There's a club that's going to be opened in Dallas later this year called Simplified Genetics, and it's going to be based on taking a cheek swab and they will give you personalized fitness programming based on your genetic profile. There's got to be something to it, because we've all seen exercisers that eat healthy and work out and sort of don't seem to have the results that they expect. And you sort of default yourself to, well, they must not have good nutrition. It's like, no, those people do. So I think there is something to it, because a lot of people exercise maybe too much high intensity where they should be doing steady state. But like these guys, I haven't seen the research yet to say, intuitively, I think it's coming, and I think there's something behind it, but I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah, because the cost of DNA production is going to just continue to drop. I mean, so and as time goes by and in the realm of data expands, and hopefully people will start to figure out what makes sense.
Excellent. Any questions just yet? You guys throw up your hands if you got something. I've got one over here. Yes.
So we always say fitness industry is about 15 to 20% of all people that are training. I'm a firm believer that to change that, we need to start making interventions at a younger age and working more with teenagers and young adults who are obviously addicted to their phones and whatever technology we can get. Something that seems to be popular and picking up is cheap things like Fitbits or whatever wearable gadgets we can get easy access for them. Is there anything coming soon or anything that we can start thinking of that we can motivate them through, that we can kind of target that and engage them and work specifically with that audience?
You know, I'll say one thing that we're working on is sort of to move into that realm is something we're calling MYZONE movement minutes. And everyone has a phone, and you don't need a Fitbit because your phone has an accelerometer in it. And so it can count steps for you. We don't like to think of it in terms of steps, and we don't give physical activity points for it because it's not physical activity. But focusing more on movement and getting them into movement at a very young age we believe will translate into fitness at a later age. And this is a device. The misconception about Fitbit is that it's inexpensive, and I think their average device was $129 last year. So it would be cost prohibitive for many parents to get a Fitbit, but most kids have phones, and so focusing on movement.
And they get bored of the Fitbits fast too, right? It's just
Yep.
another gadget for them to kind of play with.
Yep, and a lot of the social accountability and networking, Apple just announced in their version 5 operating system for their watch will have social and will have accountability mechanisms.
And the challenges that they're building in, where I can challenge you and you can decline. There's another question I saw coming up from over. Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, thank you for sharing your insights. One thing that I kind of struggle with technology is that I think there's two things happening right now. Is we're creating isolation. People are losing socialization skills through just that guy sitting on the couch. No matter what you do, you're not going to get into the gym because he might not have the social skills to be able to go to the gym and be fearful of being there. And in turn, that's obviously creating diabetes, obesity, all that type of stuff. So, question to the gentleman on the panel: what do you see as a way we can tackle that? Because the big thing that I find is just we're all like this, or part of it. Everyone's feeling the effects from that, using socialization skills. But we know that people like to get together and socially share workouts, especially with millennials. They love live events. Right? So how do we know this industry going to bring people together to create community works, have a positive effect? But technology also.
Every time in the history of humans, technology has been adopted. There are unintended consequences. And then there's going to be a new invention that undoes those consequences and creates new unintended consequences. So fire was invented, then we had fires where people had to deal with that, where their homes were burned down. So it's a progression. I think what you're going to see is a few things. And we're going to go, every time this happens with the unintended consequences, we have to deal with that. Obviously there are unintended consequences that are bad. I mean, depression, there are a lot of things around that you didn't even address that are part of the preoccupation with this. My belief is that the new levels of invention are going to be that technology is going to become even more ubiquitous. It's going to be like the air we breathe. You won't really know that you're using it. It's like the air you breathe. If you don't have the air in the room right now, people will all of a sudden understand they don't have the air. But as long as the air is there, you're not even thinking about the air. So I think what you're seeing in the trends of hardware, software, et cetera, is the need to even have the screen to be connected is going to be less and less. I think also more and more notification controls, more and more controls over how you interact with the technology, and more built-in intelligence to kind of ferret out what is not really essential. And then, of course, cultural mores, other socially acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. You're going to see a backlash. It's happening now with Facebook, thank God, where fear of missing out has become a social reality. Where if you're preoccupied without getting 200 likes, your world's come to an end. Well, we're going to see a natural backlash to this, and it's a process of the unintended consequences. So yes, but I think it's just the progression is going to take care of itself, and people as humans are going to understand there's a negative consequence to this. What do I need to do to gut check myself? So that's my input on it.
Anybody else on that one? That's obviously a very interesting challenge. I mean, anybody who's got a child who seems to be obsessed with Fortnite knows the fear of them just basically locking themselves away in their basement and not being as socially engaged as you would prefer them to be.
Having adults too.
Yeah, that's very true.
The ability to communicate and socialize.
Yeah.
Which is, and the challenge with that is, I mean, I have this debate with I've got 2 teenage boys, and they, as much as it bothers me that they are so focused on their screens, I'm constantly reminded that they're the most socially engaged global generation that we've ever seen. They'll reference interactions that they've had with people around the world in a way that I never could have imagined. And last year I had the pleasure of taking my oldest boy to Japan, and he already knew everything about the culture and the cities and so much of that, and he knew people that he had met online through some of those interactions. So it is an interesting challenge when you look at it from that standpoint.
And I think one thing that you can do is actually use technology to encourage or incentivize people to do certain actions. Like with our software, actually, what you can do is you can set up a rewards program. So somebody, instead of taking classes alone, if they refer a friend to that same class or book with them, you get additional points. You can kind of use technology to actually, get them away from the technology and actually into classes. So that's pretty cool.
Other questions?
Bryan, maybe you could talk about, since you seem to be kind of a futurist, the concept of Internet of Things and wellness holistically, and that high-level interaction where you're in your house and maybe Alexa or Google Home is giving you your stats daily. Your fridge is talking to you saying, hey, you had a lot of beer in your fridge yesterday, maybe you should put in something healthy. You know what I mean? Like, what do you envision?
It's when the beer is no longer in the fridge. You had a lot of beer in your fridge yesterday. You don't anymore.
So who knows what those things will be? But obviously, like I pointed out on the slide, enterprise, which means you have platforms in the cloud that provide data, whatever data you want, and the ability to assimilate that, and then platforms that are intelligent that do that in an automated fashion. I mean, we already have those now. So it's just a question of what are those use cases over time as sensors become more and more ubiquitous. One of my presentations, I talk about the flying car that was so touted in the 50s. And now, we're finally getting a flying car. So, the question is when and what's practical. I think all those things are possible. I think behind it, though, is things like public policy, things like John was talking about, is the monetization of those things. And, for us, primary prevention being accepted as a real thing, and us, Canada less the case, particularly the United States more the case, where we're putting huge sums into sick care that make no economic sense. But the truth is there are too many players involved making money off that. So when that's where economic and business model sustainability comes in, because the fact that I can do that and have all that happen doesn't really mean anything if there isn't a business model behind it that's going to drive that being sustainable. So I think all those things are possible. The question is, how do you make it work,
Excellent. I got a question. So probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, my mother had a cardiac incident of some sort. It wasn't a heart attack, but it was something that caused a scare within the family. And knowing my job, she said to me, I need to get more active. I need to get involved in something. And my friends in the fitness industry from GoodLife and Fit4Less in the room will maybe cringe at this, but she said, I don't really want to go into one of the clubs. I'm not comfortable being in one of your clubs. I'm thinking about buying one of these Peloton bikes. What does that tell us about the deconditioned market that up until this point perhaps has still been leery to come in? Is the technology now getting to a point where that is a very viable option for people like my mother? And what are the things that we can learn from that as club operators? That's a loaded question for you, Paul.
Yeah. I think Peloton, from my point of view, is the great success story, and I think they've opened our viewpoint as an industry in terms of what's possible. And I think for me, they're making fitness easier to consume, and then especially again targeting those less confident users, exactly like your mother, that stepping inside a gym, doing a group exercise class, relying on a trainer is a scary thing. So they're relying on a live stream class because it's in her home. It's just easier, the whole process, and even in terms of even buying a membership with Peloton versus maybe buying a membership at Less or GoodLife.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good success story, and I think we're seeing more and more of that. And I think what the unique thing is, what we're seeing, especially with other applications, is they are enabling personalization and good programming. It's all, and that's the scary thing about how our industry is going. Of course, it's always, from my point of view, it's how do we link it into the live programming, but these things are getting smarter and smarter, and it's something that's there that we need to think about and understand how we work with rather than against.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, my view is the graph I showed you up there in the key drivers of business models today, the 4 drivers of programming, omnipresence, data, digital, and aesthetic user experience and business model sustainability. For existing operators, if they're not looking through that lens, and then the 5 lenses that I brought up on keys, then you're really, when you look at a Peloton, that's a great example of, if you're not thinking about these other things, your flank's exposed.
Yeah.
For most of them. Now, not every market, not every situation, but for most operators, if they're not thinking about those things, you're exposed.
I think one of the things also that we have to watch is that very quietly Peloton launched a digital app.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's $20 a month.
Yeah.
And it is it active? Is
Yeah,
that the current app that's out in the market?
Yeah.
They're valued at $200 million
Yeah.
after this, their
Yeah.
latest round of financing. Peloton is now valued at $4.1 billion.
Yeah.
And so we as fitness professionals have to understand the delivery of content is bypassing us and going direct to the consumer, and we have to understand how we participate in that content delivery, whether or not we jump in or view it as a friend or foe.
So how do we participate? I mean, and I know that that's the $1 million question. Well, it's the $1 billion question now. But how do we get involved in that?
Well,
as club operators and
there's lots of ways. I mean, it depends on your business model. It's that S-curve reinvention thing I showed. But one thing is, and of course, you can go a route like Wexer. Of course, that's a solution. You can go a route like MYZONE. It's another solution. You could go a route like eGym. Automation, content. You don't even have to do that. You can use the hell out of Instagram TV channels, et cetera. You can produce a lot of content. So that your users can get experiences wherever they are. You can make that freemium content. There's lots of ways to compete. But the point is that if you're not looking to those things that we've talked about and thinking, how am I going to operate in this world? What Mike is mentioning is becomes the problem, because then all you are is a middle woman or middleman in a game that you are going to have a very hard time competing in.
So, I mean, if people are wanting to take away from this some homework that they can go and take a look at, are there any kind of large-scale club operators or even small-scale club operators who are doing this very successfully right now, have really figured that out, or at least have decided that they're willing to bet the farm on that kind of thing?
Yeah, like our example is McFit in Europe. So they committed to $5 million per year on content creation called Cyberotics, and they're looking for 1 million members on digital only. So that's essentially content and personalization of programs. They just had over 100,000. Daniel, you correct me if I'm wrong. 100,000 users. So early days, but they're doing it, and I think talking to the likes of McFit and Rhino, they said they wish they started earlier.
Yep.
That was their biggest issue.
Yep.
Sorry, are they bricks and mortar traditional?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, most profitable health club in Europe.
In the world, and they're a budget model.
Yeah.
Oh, McFit. Okay, sorry.
In Germany.
The other thing is that there's a small gym in Carlsbad, California, and I think it's called Studio Sweat or Sweat Studio. She's a cycling boutique fitness operator, and she has 20,000 people paying her for her monthly programming.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be McFit or
Yeah.
Fitness
No,
First.
that's
or
exactly
GoodLife.
right.
It can be anyone that sets their mind to it and is
Agreed.
good at it and is
Yeah.
creating good, valuable programming, and they can monetize that.
Yeah.
It's just
It is.
At some point, it's just a matter of doing it.
Doing it.
Yeah.
That's the strategy.
Well,
Yep.
you know, content, essentially, this is what we talk about all the time, and a big reason why we spend so much money on live streaming is, 15 grand can get you live streaming content. You can start putting that out to the world straight away. And you think about how much content we create as an industry all the time, but we lock it in four walls. Let's get it out there.
Well, we're in an era now where, we never would have talked about YouTube stars 10
No,
years ago,
no,
and now
no,
it seems
no.
like if
Now
I'm
they're
walking
critical.
down the street and there's a massive kid standing in front of something, my son will say, well, that's such and such a person. I've never even heard of this person, but well, they're a YouTube star.
Yeah.
YouTube sensation, whatever the expression is. So it's the content is something that is obviously changing rapidly.
So one part of it for me too is it's just that yes, you want to pay attention to what's happening outside the walls and figure out how you can participate in that. But the other side is you need to focus as well on what's going on inside your walls and how you can differentiate with the advantage you have, which is a real physical space. Right? And so if you think about, for example, what happened with the arcade industry, right? As soon as Ataris and PlayStations and everything else came around, they all disappeared, right? And then they reemerged as Dave & Buster's and these other businesses now that don't have those same kinds of games. They have way better programming, essentially, that actually draws you into that space. And so I think that's something else we need to think about.
Yeah, aesthetic user design and creative solutions are big. If you aren't looking at aesthetic user design in any facility today that's really differentiated and programming that's differentiated, you're gonna have a problem.
When you said arcade, you immediately made me think of coin-operated fitness, and I was just kind of joking about it. And then I started thinking about some of those companies that we do know of around the world who, not necessarily coin-operated, but they're taking micropayments for different amenities in the clubs. Tap your RFID wristband to get hot water in the shower, and that's €1 or something.
That's real. Yeah, Fresh Fitness did it.
Yeah, Fresh
Fitness
Never
did
hated it, but
Yeah.
Question over here, was that Nathan?
I was just going to ask a question though. I really appreciate all the perspectives you guys have, and it was kind of making me think about, kind of the globalization of fitness technology, because I think depending on your locale, you might have different options available for you and things like that. I'm just wondering how that is going to influence, or maybe create barriers in some cases, because I look at what's going on in the US and it seems like there's a lot more opportunity to make sustainable businesses, potentially than Canada, because of how healthcare is delivered, for instance. And I'm just curious from your perspective, who's doing it well, I guess, and how do you kind of foresee that maybe either being a barrier or a good thing for, I guess, countries to create laws and policies that are going to be really good for fitness and technology in general.
That's a big deal. Public policy is a big deal. I mean, it's a huge deal. In America right now, the FIT Act is a big thing that Urs has been working on for years that is now in the Senate. So the possibility of just tax deductibility of expenses for that is a big deal. And the organization works with other associated organizations around the world around this point. And as John was saying before, and as I think everybody would tell you, Mike, everybody at the table would tell you, putting an economic engine behind it through the notion of primary prevention, it would be very helpful to the industry as a whole globally.
Are there specific countries that are doing it really well? I kind of, the more I listen to it, I feel like Canada's kind of behind, but I feel like we're somewhat ahead in certain areas of it, but then behind in other areas in terms of the opportunities. Is that?
So you want to jump on that?
Yeah, I don't think it's happening well yet.
No,
That's my take, yeah.
No, but I think you're going to see it because the truth is that the cost of, our world is getting older. The cost of sick care delivery is prohibitive. And technology is going to enable delivery at scale, and then you have the ultimate attempt at merging certain aspects of chronic disease with primary prevention, like diabetes is a great example that John raised. I mean, most diabetes adult onset type 2 is curable. But you go to see an endocrinologist in the United States, they're really not going to talk to you for the most part about that. They're not going to give you generally a path to cure yourself. Unless you're an exceptional physician, for the most part, they're going to give you a prescription of metformin, and you're going to tell you, We'll see you in 6 months for your checkup. So that's because their economic system is rewarded for people to have diabetes, So until policy changes, and it will have to change because we cannot afford to keep it. There is no way to keep it. So it's a matter of time.
The integration of healthcare and fitness is the holy grail of our industry.
Yeah.
It is the single largest event that could take us beyond 17% of the population. The sad part about it, in my opinion, is it's not going to be led by fitness professionals. It's going to be led by people called actuaries. And actuaries are accountants or statisticians. And sadly, it's going to be until they can provide the data to the large insurance companies and to governments in single-payer led healthcare countries, until they can provide that data, that it actually reduces the cost. And I will say something provocative in this room.
Here we go.
Because
Brian's still recording, I think.
No, I will agree with Mike because I know what he's going to say. So I'll give him cover.
I think the reason it hasn't happened is because the actuaries show that it doesn't lower the sole cost. When insurance companies buy someone, they buy Nathan, they look at what his soul will cost them over the lifetime. And I think, I haven't seen this because I don't think the data, I think what the data shows them is that the 30% of someone's life cost for healthcare is spent in the last 9 months
of their life,
whether they're 70 or 90. And so why would the insurance company want that, other than there's a time value of money element, of course, to it, but the maintenance cost, it outsets the time value of money cost. And so that's why I don't think it's happening. I think it's more expensive for someone to live longer for the insurance companies, and that's why they don't do it.
I would also argue that we don't have good solutions to actually help people at scale.
That's right.
So it's difficult as you increase the amount of value that you're delivering to these high-risk populations with your products, the more the economics make sense. And right now, the types of programs that we have, where we're sending people out to walk 10,000 steps, or
it's not enough.
Check into a gym 4 times, like of course we're seeing no benefit.
Right. That's a great point.
And Noom, though, Noom, technology like Noom, CDC's accepted Noom. They're addressing a huge population of people right now using technology and AI. So, and people that have chronic illness, where the insurance or the government's already paying in the United States through Medicare, once you get diabetes and the $15,000 a year shows up, interventions are ROI. So it's just a matter of time, but more important, it's a matter of public policy changes, and it's a matter of us just coming to the realization it's just going to cost too much. But I would say, and part of what Mike's talking about is accurate, is in the United States where you have middlemen who are insurance companies, they don't really add value to the solution. So they're playing a monetary game that creates the dynamic that he's describing, which is problematic. So,
and I think there are progressive insurance companies out there coming out.
It's just a marketing
Leveque, I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but they're doing some really amazing things, and they're actually encouraging personal trainers and massage therapists to be part of the booking process and all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's to the benefit that people live longer because you're paying more every month for life insurance as you get older. So I think they're starting to see that, and League is pretty progressive out there, and they're doing some amazing things.
Are they Toronto based?
They are Toronto based.
So
they just got
company worth looking into.
Yeah, and they just got a recent round of another funding. I think a couple $100 million. So.
They're an interesting company.
Yeah.
I saw a couple more hands going up at one point. We have nothing right now. Okay, data. So we've been trying for Brian, you, and many others have been trying for a long time to try to get data flowing between systems from equipment manufacturers to different software companies. We, for the longest time, had strived to do this for the betterment of members, for better outcomes. And I don't know that we've met with a lot of success with that. There's a new era coming where everybody's talking about personalization more from a marketing standpoint than from an outcome standpoint. But we're once again sitting here looking at data, trying to figure out how do we get the data from our different systems assembled together so that we can provide a more holistic view of an individual, helping them with the wellness journey that they have obviously started down the path of. Are we any closer to the data flowing more naturally between the systems? Or are we where we were 10 years ago?
Mike, you want to be controversial? John, you want to be controversial?
Yeah.
Well, I did spend 20 years in the manufacturing business. And I will say very briefly, hopefully, that
You're only 38. You're 18. It's amazing.
the digital platforms that have been created in the past by manufacturers have been to solely support the brand loyalty to their hardware. And because of that, portability of data hasn't been a key theme for the manufacturers. Now, having said that, two things are happening right now. One is Apple, Wahoo are creating data mechanisms to allow you to take your data with you. I guess there's three things. And so, there's the gym kit, from Apple that after your workout, you can upload it to your phone and that will upload in a health kit and you can send it to any device that you want. So that is positive movement in that regard. Many of the manufacturers are using a Wahoo dongle to allow for other Bluetooth upload. The other thing is GDPR in Europe is requiring, I think the central theme of data, GDPR is data is owned by the user, and so companies that operate in Europe are having to allow the portability of data. But I think the other thing is forward-thinking CEOs. I've been to 3 of the manufacturers in the last 90 days. One of the CEOs has said very publicly that the future of his company is not going to be based solely on fitness equipment, and it's going to be based on the digital experience that their customers, users have on their product. If I go up to a treadmill and I just hit some sort of RFID or NFC on the equipment and it says, "Oh, welcome, Mike," and maybe there's some advertising on there, but I'll tell you what, it's very targeted advertising. It's not obnoxious and it's personalized to me, and so it's interesting. But the value proposition to a club is to say, if you allow me to do that as Life Fitness Techno Gym Precor, I will give you your treadmill for free. And then all of a sudden they can have a content delivery system. You can have a Wexer app on there, or you can have an eGym or MYZONE app. It will all be housed on that screen, but for that, it will be an experience that I like. They will have my eyeballs. Maybe I have to look at advertising for the benefit of that, but for the operator, it dramatically reduces the operating costs.
You're taking me back to NetPulse.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Advertising revenue.
Just too early.
Yeah. So I think this is a super interesting topic for me. I've spent a lot of time with manufacturers over the last 10 years working on integrations, getting data out of systems, etc. And I do think that the third parties are breaking through, like GymKit and these sorts of things, for enabling data portability. What I think it's important to understand from a gym operator perspective about these platforms is that, as Mike said, the proprietary platforms are built to get you to buy more equipment, right? To get you hooked into a platform such that you can't go and buy other equipment because it's not compatible. That's the main objective. And so there are a couple manufacturers that I want to mention that I think are doing it correctly, and that is Matrix and Precor. Both those manufacturers, have truly open platforms, meaning they will integrate with anybody. They will allow anybody to integrate their software into the system, and data exchange is free, right? I would go even farther with Precor and say that they've actually architected their platform such that third-party app development right onto their platform is extremely easy, which adds a whole other sort of aspect to it, in that not only are third parties able to get data in and out, but they're able to impact the user experience directly, which is what Mike was mentioning. So get our software, for example, right on the screen that run the way that we want it to, even though it's a Precor machine. But philosophically, Matrix is in the same place as well. What you'll hear from the other manufacturers is that they're open also. The reality is that they're open as long as you're not doing something they want to do. And that's a big, big difference. And so, yeah.
Go on. Oh, sorry. So Brian, I mean, you were pushing that rock uphill first.
So let me tell you about that. All right, I want to tell you two stories. First, it's not about me. Let me ask you a question. Anyone in here remember record stores? I got a great proposition for you. You can come in my record store and listen to music for free. Hopefully you'll buy a record. That's a great business model, isn't it? Or how about better? You want to come to a movie theater, all right? Well, you can stream video while you're there. And if you buy a ticket, that'll be great. I think this is a nice idea. I don't think it's real. I don't think there's a market for it in the end. I think that basically a lot of this talk is about being in the record store industry. Could you imagine being in the record store industry in 1985 where the only way you could get music was to buy record albums or cassette tapes? Because that's what we're talking about here. In a world of omnipresence, yes, there'll be some of this, but as a slice of the market, it ain't going to be a lot, in my opinion. And when you look at scale, from a standpoint of scale, equipment manufacturers, what are they, $3 billion a year in size? You know how small that is in the world of consumer businesses? It's like teeny. So the problem is that there's not enough money in it. There's not enough money in it. So that's why I believe that the disruption will come from outside the space or from people here who are playing on the lines of a kind of a new era. I don't think it's in the DNA of most manufacturers to even think about this. You know, hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't think it is. I think it's like record stores, and they're making albums.
Well, it's interesting that you have a fitness technology panel with not one manufacturer on this stage.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That says a lot.
It does. And again, not knocking anyone. It comes down to this: how do you make money? You know, that's what it comes down to. You can have all the technical possibilities in the world, but unless you have a sustainable business model that makes sense, doesn't matter. This guy knows he's got tread marks on his back.
I mostly came after the damage.
Yeah,
I led the pivot away. So.
I mean that with love.
We'll see after we're done here, and he gets a chance to talk to you privately. So we've got about 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get any other questions from the group here.
I was actually going to ask, so John, you had mentioned Precore and Matrix being two that are being more progressive. Like, what would cause them? What's driving them to be more progressive? Like what, right?
Yeah, I mean, total transparency. I think Precore, because they 100% failed at building their own proprietary system called Priva, spent $30-40 million on it, and it ended up not adding the value they expected.
Yeah.
So that caused them to, feeling that pain, to really sit down and think hard about what their role is in the ecosystem and where they should invest their energy. I think they came to the correct conclusion, which is that they are an enabler of technology companies to come in and build great experiences on their console, but that they themselves should focus on enabling and building a great exercise, a great piece of exercise equipment. With Matrix, I would, I'm just assuming here, but I think a big part of it is they were small and scrappy, and they came into the space, the digital side, a little bit late, without as many resources as some of the other large players. So they were looking at a Precore and a Technogym and thinking, how can we compete with that right now? We don't have the team to do it. And so they were sort of forced into a partner route where they started relying on third-party companies to help develop technology in their systems. But it's fortunate for them because that ended up getting their mindset correct. And and then, the Technogym has always had the proprietary platform. Life Fitness just very recently announced theirs, which is a very interesting direction for me, given what we've seen historically from other players in the U.S. that have tried.
And Core's doing some open stuff as well. They're, in fairness to them, they're doing, and then of course GymKit with Techno and Core with Techno and that, and then they do the Wahoo stuff at Core. So, I think in the end it's going to be what buyers start demanding that they need outside of that user experience, because at some point, kind of like you mentioned about MindBody Online, MindBody serves customers that are club owners, but they're also direct-to-customer play. So there's a point where people are going to get smarter about what's going on here and how does it affect my business. You didn't have to think much about that 10 years ago, right, Mike, in the day? I mean, yeah.
Well, I think the reality of it is if we can learn anything from these devices is we know that not one manufacturer is around that creates his own content and doesn't deliver third-party apps.
Right. Yeah.
And so if that's the future of fitness, it's pretty ominous for
Yeah,
closed systems.
that's well said. That's very well said.
Any other questions? We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I know some of you may want to come up and grab one of these guys individually for a quick question. We got through an entire panel almost without talking about blockchain or wow, holy shit, how did we do that? Yes.
I got a question. This is for Len, because I'm sure WellnessLiving serves small businesses, right?
Sure.
There was something Bryan said about him going into Four Seasons and not having to talk to anybody, but your application gives people the opportunity to book into classes, taking away completely the human element of everything.
Right.
Would that affect, like, coming from a small boutique gym, wouldn't that take away our competitive advantage, which is the service?
Right. I think what it does is it removes that friction. So a lot of times a person doesn't really want to speak to someone, and they just want the convenience of going on an app and booking online. And that is increasing. So what we're seeing is mobile phone usage. Everyone has a mobile phone, and they want that convenience. They want that ability to do that. And the personal ability is still there. They can always pick up the phone and call. So you have to kind of give them that option, and that's what software is all about.
Meet them where they want to be.
Exactly.
Good. Okay. If there's no other questions, we have made it through an entire panel without talking about blockchain, and that's why I'm going to wrap it up, because we want to stay away from that as much as possible. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for coming out. Thank you to the panel.
Hi, everyone. This is Bryan O'Rourke again. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. The podcast is brought to you by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, as well as my company, Vedere Ventures, Moon Mission Media, and others. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please feel free to share it, and join us again soon when we bring to you another leader in the fitness space talking about technology and what it means to our industry. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you again very soon.